how can we say things? How can we use our voices for good? Hello, everybody. Guess what? Today is actually not a mistake. Today is my 100th episode anniversary of Recipe for Success live podcast. It's hard to believe that I have made it this far. When I started 4 years ago, it was just, as usual, one of my harebrained ideas that I thought would be a lot of fun. And so I figured it out. I was starting to see the LinkedIn lives and I was curious. I'm like, how do you do that? And so I asked a few people, I started researching. You had to be approved for it, and you needed a third party platform to be able to do it. And I'm curious by nature. So, of course, I'm like, well, I think I can do that. Let's figure out how to do that. And a little over 4 years later and 100 episodes, here we are. Oh, yay. Thank you, Amanda. Amanda Kennedy used to work with me, and then she made the unfortunate decision to move across the country, and I still miss her, but I appreciate the kudos. So, anyway, here we are. And I thought that today it would be fun to talk about all the things that I've learned. I've had 100 episodes, I've done them all without a safety net, which when you do it live, it is what it is. Although it's not one of my favorite sayings of all time, it can't be more true than when you are doing something live. There have been fabulous episodes and there have been not so fabulous episodes. But one of the things I promised was a breakdown of the equipment and software I use along with my process. As well, at the very end, I am going to answer my own 5 burning questions. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Please ask questions or comments at any time. I'm happy to answer anything. But I do get a lot of, can't help it. I have to say, she says, I miss you. And if teleportation existed, I would be there in a heartbeat. That's one of the great things about working with great people is you're able to maintain good relationships with them even after the fact. So my screen is being weird today, so let's keep this on top. So let's go through some of the equipment that I used. So when I first had the idea to do a podcast, my only real point of reference was, can I say it? The Joe Rogan Experience, because I saw, they had the mixing board and the headphones and all this fancy equipment. So I thought, well, gosh, we probably need that as well. So if you want to know the truth, yes, I have a mixing board and I do have a camera that we use for in person. Oh, I'm just going to keep popping these up. Meredith, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. So I do have a mixing board. I do have the headphones. I do have my mom is one of my most loyal supporters. I do have the good camera. So although I do not use those on a daily basis, I do use them occasionally. And occasions generally are when somebody wants to come in person and not do it over video. So I have probably 5 or 6 episodes that we've done with in-person guests. And I have to tell you, those are fabulous. It's really fun. And I'm set up to be able to do them either remote or in person. But the majority of my episodes are like this. I'm sitting at my desk. I've got a microphone. I've got a light. And I have an external camera. And I have a headphone in my ear. So I prefer to use an external camera rather than the one that's built into, most laptops. And I know a lot of people use those and they work great, but I find that I often see people with books and boxes stacked up trying to get the exact right angle. Where when you have an external camera, it either sits on top of your monitor or you can get a little stand for it and you can adjust it to any angle you want. So for me, that's my preference. Plus, it's portable. I have taken it with me on occasion. Oh my goodness, one of my very early guests, Wellington Wansang. Thank you for joining us. He was probably in my first 20 guests, maybe even fewer than that. So it's nice to see people joining. So the camera I use is a Logitech Brio. I've had it for a few years. I'm assuming that it's still available. It's under $200. So it's not a terribly expensive piece of equipment. And like I say, I've been using it for 3 to 4 years. Um, oh, you guys are making me tear up before I can even tell you. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Mom. Um, I do remember you, Wellington. Of course I do. Like I say, you were one of my early guests. I appreciate you so much. So I use the Logitech Brio, works great. And it's been working great for 3 or 4 years. So $200 investment. It's pretty small, and I use it for all my Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, everything else. So it is a workhorse for me. Um, I recommend using an external microphone. Again, you don't have to. The Logitech Brio actually has a microphone built into it, but I don't think the sound quality is that great. So I do use a microphone. When I first started, I was using a Yeti microphone, which worked great. But I found that, again, just due to all the stuff I have on my desk and everything it takes to get this going, I recently, this last year, I upgraded to this Rode microphone. And as you can see, it's an adjustable arm. So it works really well for me. So I like this. Not necessary to have it. I just have found that it's super helpful. And then definitely you're going to need headphones. I'm a girl. I don't want something messing up my hair and some big giant cans on my ears. So that was a no go for me. For a long time, I used nothing more than a fairly inexpensive set of wired earbuds. If you watched any of my episodes, you used to see a pink wire hanging down my neck. Now you see an AirPod in my ear. Most of the time, I only use one because I like to be able to hear what's going on around me as well. Pro tip, if you're going to use the earbuds, you need to turn off the Bluetooth on your phone because it will automatically connect to your phone first and it won't allow you to connect via your computer. I spent several days agonizing and complaining about my AirPods before my son informed me what I was doing wrong. So, pro tip, if you ever decide to do that, that's how that works. So, that's kind of your basic equipment. Oh, you know what? I need to touch on one other thing, and that's lighting. You need good lighting. It's probably one of my biggest pet peeves with people that are in a dark room or they're lit from behind so it's hard to see their face. You really want to make sure that you're in an environment where there's not a lot of competing noise, there's not a lot of competing visuals, and that you're well lit, and the lighting should be from behind your camera towards your face. Super important. You know what I don't like? I don't like a ring light. A ring light is beautiful for photographs, etc. But oftentimes, especially when I'm interviewing guests that I have a lot of technical questions for, I have my glasses on, and guess what a ring light does? It puts little rings of light in my glasses. Don't love that. I used a box light, a soft box light forever, but it was kind of big and bulky. Great light. I recently upgraded to a Lume Cube Edge light. Again, none of these pieces of equipment are terribly expensive. And I turn my light on for every single video meeting that I have because it makes a huge difference in the quality that comes through. I'm not a big fan of virtual backgrounds. I know a lot of people are. I say make sure your background looks okay. And if it doesn't, get a screen. You know, they sell portable screens on Amazon, or a green screen, or just something so you have some visual interest behind you. The problem with the virtual backgrounds, especially if you want to reuse any of the video, is that, you know, part of your face may go in and out of focus, and it makes you hard to see, and it's distracting, and it takes away from your message. So I think that that's important. Okay, so now you've got the equipment, right? You've got a camera, you've got a microphone, got a flashlight or some sort of external lighting. You've got your earphones. What is next? You're going to need software. So the software I use is called StreamYard, and I've used it since the beginning. It was one of the original streaming services that was out there. And in my opinion, I've looked at others, but I think StreamYard is still the GOAT. It has a lot of amazing features. The only cool background I've seen, yeah, it's got a good one. Yeah, I just am not a big fan of virtual backgrounds. So StreamYard does a lot of really cool things, and I use a paid version. There's unpaid versions as well. But because I do some branding with mine, you probably noticed the little intro video. When I have guests on, there's a background. Sometimes I put my logo up in the corner, but it allows me to stream to multiple platforms at the same time. So currently, every time I schedule a podcast or it airs, it goes live on LinkedIn. It goes live on, and LinkedIn, it goes live on both, yeah, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and YouTube. You can stream live to a couple other services, and I'll do it at some point. I just haven't figured that one out as well yet, but I will get there. But I create an event, I create some artwork, which is, I usually do it in Canva, not gonna lie. I use a super easy tool to do that. Um, and I can schedule it ahead of time. I can schedule it way in advance, but I generally schedule mine a week ahead of time. When I say schedule, my guests are scheduled more in advance, but I do the actual live posting and scheduling within the week prior so that people know what's coming up and they don't forget about it. So again, I have custom branding, I have intros, I have outros. StreamYard saves my recordings, so then I can download them and give them to my video editor and do other fun stuff with them. So once one of my podcasts are complete, this is probably the one area I do spend a little bit of money on. I do use a video editor who's been fabulous over the years. Love her. She's out of Florida. And I'll give her a little shout out. Her name is Nidra Ali, and her company is called Simplistic Innovations. So if anybody's looking for somebody that knows how to do this stuff, she's great. But within the week following each one of my podcasts, she takes that recording, she cleans it up. So maybe I've got, I'm doing some weird thing at the end because the video didn't cut off quite in time. She cleans that up, she puts the outro on it, she posts that to YouTube, as well as all of the popular podcast streaming platforms. So then they go to live for all eternity or until, something changes. So that is kind of how StreamYard works. It's the hub that makes the live streaming possible. I mentioned I create my own cover art in Canva. Again, my video editor, she makes a template for me each season. So I like to change it. So each season has a slightly different look. And then every week I go in there, I upload my guest's profile picture along with mine, which I need to update mine as well. And then I can put my cover art into StreamYard when I post it. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. Oh, so you have to keep pushing. Thank you, Joel. Thank you. So that is a really fun tool. Everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but most people know that there is a free version of Canva as well as a paid. Again, I do have a paid version because I use it extensively and I have other people that I share my account with. Super inexpensive, one of the best tools in the business. So that's the technical part. That's the things that I use to get this done. But how do I decide who I want to have on my podcast and and how do I reach out to them? So, thank you. Sorry, I just keep seeing all these cute little notes. I get my ideas from everywhere. I see people post interesting things on LinkedIn. I've seen a guest on somebody else's podcast. Sometimes I've been at a conference. I have invited people that I have seen on the news. I have invited people that I've seen do documentaries. Some people don't get back to me. They're like, I don't know who this chick is. And why does she want me on her podcast? Never heard of it. But I would say 95% of the time, people are super friendly, they're super accommodating, and they're happy to get any additional exposure. So each season, I create a nice little Excel spreadsheet. I put the dates that I'm going to have available. I build into there any time that I'm going to be away, such as at conferences, etc. And I schedule. So that's my season schedule. And once I start booking guests, I put them on there. As soon as somebody agrees to be a guest, I create a calendar invite as a placeholder. I send them the invite. And at that time, I also ask them to return a photo and a brief bio. So, okay, just couldn't, that one made me laugh. Who doesn't know me? Well, a lot of people, I think, but we're having We're having fun over here. Um, sorry, keep getting distracted. So anyway, I fill that in. I send them a calendar invite as a placeholder. There's no live link. There's no details because I haven't actually created the event on StreamYard yet. Fill up my calendar, and then this season I actually do this on the Monday prior to my show. I send out an email, which I have saved as a template so I don't have to rewrite it in my head every single time. So it's very standardized. I include a live link to the enter the studio so they can enter into StreamYard. I include all of the links to each one of the social media platforms. And then I also attach an outline of the questions I plan to ask. Now, I have been a guest on many podcasts and I'm pretty quick on my feet, so I can go either way. But it's really helpful to know the types of questions somebody is going to ask you. And as any of my guests will tell you, I can easily go down a rabbit hole. So you might say something interesting to me in a response, and I might not get to the last five questions I was planning on asking you because it's opened a Pandora's box that I think is important to discuss. I always do warn people ahead of time, like beware of the rabbit holes because I'm likely to go down one. Um, but again, at least they understand the structure of what my show looks like. I try to keep them between 30 and 40 minutes. I've had a few that have gone longer where we just can't get enough information packed into that amount of time. They're always scheduled for an hour just because that's how I schedule them. But out of respect for the audience and my guest time, that's usually my goal is to try and keep it around that time frame. So I have my outline. I also include my five burning questions on my outline so that, again, I don't completely blindside people because they're questions that require a little bit of thought. And so I don't want to put somebody on the spot. I don't think that that's comfortable for anybody. So I often get asked, well, how would you answer those questions? So today, you get my answers to my questions. Now, four of them stay the same all the time, and one of them I always change up based on whatever subject matter that we're talking about. So, question number one, it does not deviate, although I'm going to change it up next year. It'll still be food related, so be prepared for that. I've asked this question for all 100 episodes. What's your absolute favorite food in the world, and can you cook it? I think this was actually my most challenging question because I'm always super surprised at how some of my guests they just know exactly what their answer is. And I'm like, but I like so many things. How do I choose? But if I had to choose just one thing that's absolutely like the most decadent, my favorite meal, it would be perfectly seared scallops with risotto or some sort of vegetable puree. That's like heaven to me. So I would say that. Um, what character trait do you admire most in other people and why? Now, that was the previous question was my hardest question. This one is my easiest question. So for me, it's kindness. I think kindness is a little bit of a lost art. And I think also that during COVID, people forgot about kindness because everybody was very invested in their position, whatever that position was. And because we were separated, we were behind masks, we were behind screens, it was okay to be unkind. So I think kindness is an undervalued character trait. So that's one of my favorite character traits. I generally ask people, and it's never on my list because it's the one thing I do like to surprise people with. And I always ask them, okay, so if I flip the script on you and say, what's the character trait in yourself that you're most proud of and why? I had to think about this one. I would have to say for me, it's authenticity. And it's one of the reasons that I do these live. I want people to see who I am on any given Wednesday. I want them to see me at my good, my bad, when I stumble over my words. I did a podcast a couple months ago with a fabulous guest, Sarah Covington, and I was just getting over COVID and the brain fog was real. I felt like I could barely speak my questions. It was terrible. But we put on such a show in our society today, especially with social media. We treat it as a highlight reel. We show all the good things and we never talk about the challenges or the struggles that we may have. So for me, this is just kind of a way of pulling back the curtain a little bit and showing who I am. Okay, so this is the one question that I always tailor a little bit to the subject matter. And so for me, the question I'm asking myself today is, what's the one thing a person should know if they're interested in starting a podcast? Well, I gave you the basics. You can find them anywhere. You can do it with anything. I mean, you can do it on your phone. It's not complicated. It depends on how professional you want it to be and what your intent is with it. So, my advice is just do it and be prepared to roll with whatever comes your way. I've had guests that haven't shown up. I've had guests that were outside with jackhammer going in the background, and it was so hard to focus. I've had guests that you could barely see their faces because they had a big picture window behind them. Um, so, you know, you just have to be able to be adaptable and to go, okay, this isn't perfect. Probably not going to use this one as a highlight in the future, but still stay engaged and still just go with whatever comes your way. Um, I'm not really sure how I came up with this question, but it's one of my favorite ones. And I like to ask people, what's your secret talent or something about you that people would be surprised to learn? I don't have a lot of talent. I'm going to tell you that straight up. I have no athletic ability whatsoever. I can't sing. No one wants to see me dance. Um, I'm smart and all that sort of thing. But I don't have a talent per se. But I do have a super quick wit. And I think those people that know me well would know that. But if you don't know me, you might not actually realize that about me. And then the last question I always ask is, who is the one person, famous or otherwise, living or not, that you would most like to meet and sit down and have a conversation with, and why? And my number one person is Julia Child. I think she's absolutely fascinating. She was a trailblazer in her era. Um, sorry, I was reading a comment. She was a trailblazer. She did things that women didn't do in her era. And I could relate to that because you guys all know I'm old. And back when I started in this industry, no one knew what to do with a 23-year-old female in a room full of men. They wanted to pat me on the head and ask me whose assistant I was. So I've always admired women trailblazers. And I think she's incredibly fascinating. She's an amazing cook. I mean, she was one of my cookbook that literally is barely held together, but I'll never replace it because I love that cookbook because I've loved on it so much. So I would say that would be the answer to that question. So I hope I haven't bored you guys all to death because it's weird just talking on my own for this amount of time. But if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to open it up for a couple of minutes. So I'll sit here and try to be patient and see if any questions come in because I think podcasting has been a super fun way for me to learn more about um, anything that I've been interested in. It's always cool to get somebody on and to be able to understand how their brain works, how why they chose a certain field. I've had I've had some really interesting guests. I particularly love people in the I love medical practitioners, anybody in the healthcare field, but I've had a lot that have been outside of that as well. I've had a couple of people that have been on here to talk about fashion and style. I had founders of a cookie company come on and talk about how they leveraged social media to absolutely expand their cookie business like crazy. I had somebody that is a coach for F1 racing, which again, all these cool people. And again, I've just run across them. I thought, you have an interesting story and I'd like to know more. So how else are you going to invite them to a conversation? I mean, you're not going to say, hey, you want to just get on the phone and chat with me? But if you say, would you like to be on my podcast? The answer is probably going to be yes, and you get that opportunity to have that conversation. So that's the thing that I love the most. My season is coming to an end the end of September. I do run it from February through September of each year because I do work in the benefits world, which means we are in an absolute frenzy of busyness between October 1st and then we're doing mop up in January. So trying to maintain a podcast during that time is not really particularly feasible for me. But I would like to tell everybody that took the time to join me today, thank you so much. It meant the world to me. I thought I was going to be on here talking literally to myself. But I wanted to do this. I thought it would be a fun way to celebrate 100 episodes. So thank you, everybody. I will be back next week with a regular guest and a regular format. So I appreciate you all. Well, thank you so much.